Welcome, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. This time we're going to be going into a game that I've been enjoying this past year, but have had my ups and downs with it. It's a fantastic game. The world's great. The everything, just like the ambience, the feel, the communication with other people in this game. By people, I mean NPCs. And the quests seem to be pretty interesting. Sometimes they can be a little tough, but who doesn't love a good challenge? Now, there is a sequel coming out, what, next month that I'm looking forward to. So I'm trying to finish this game soon. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. Well talked about that now. So, the game I'm referring to is called Kingdom Come Deliverance. It's not a new game. It's been out for a few years. The sequel has been a long time coming, and the company making it, Warhorse Studios, I think is a good company. I really do think they're a good company, and they're excellent devs. But I do have some questions about some of the aspects of the game, since they are, if I recall correctly, they are out of Eastern Europe, and for those of us who have had experience in the Eastern European game market, you might be aware that Eastern Europe does things a bit differently. Like they don't really make games for the global market. In other words, like the mechanics and the machinations of their games don't always fit with the global market in terms of, like, when you play first person shooters, there's a pretty standard setup. Triggers fire, other triggers usually aiming. You pick your reload's always in the same spot. Your jump or action is always in the same spot. Grenades are always in the same spot. Rotating through ammo or reload is always in the same spot. Like it's a global phenomenon amongst first person shooters. And anytime somebody goes off the beaten path and it doesn't improve it, like it becomes just weird and nobody enjoys it, that's usually where it goes downhill. Now, there are a few exceptions in history that I've noticed, namely between Halo 3 and Black Ops when it first came out, Call of Duty Black Ops. Their layouts were totally different. And I went from playing a ton of Halo 3 to trying out Call of Duty Black Ops because everyone's like, oh, this could be so great. It's going to be so great. And I was like, oh, I like the setting as opposed to some of the other ones. And I've been a big fan of Call of Duty growing up and whatnot. Love the World War II games. And then their controls were so different that I literally got worse at both. Yeah, that happened. So I went from being pretty prolific in the Halo 3 world of experiences and playing online and everything, and being moderately good at it. Not like amazing by any means, but I definitely was not the last person picked on the team. But when it came to switching over and the controls being completely different and not having played Call of Duty in a long time that time period, because there wasn't really much coming out that I really cared about, um, it was one of those weird instances in which I had to step back from all FPSs before I went back in. Because the control schematics matter. How things work in your game matters. And so, while this may sound very negative to anyone who's watching, and of course, everyone in the chat's like, you're always negative. Not really, but only about certain topics, and they're usually the things that could be improved or could be better. So consider this more of constructive criticism with a little bit of flair or a little bit of what were you thinking kind of a mentality. Because I want Warhorse to succeed because I really like the game. I do think it's a fantastic game. I do think it has its problems. And I'm definitely not the only person. So if you go and type Kingdom Come Deliverance into your YouTube search bar and throw it into the algorithm, you'll find there's a lot of people being like, there's something wrong here. And this thing could be improved. So I'm treating this more like a constructive criticism with a bit of pizzazz, shall we say. So, that being said, what do I like about the game? Well, again, ambience, the sound quality is amazing. The graphics for the time are fantastic. It still even holds up to more modern times. There are some graphical differences, but it's still really, really good. And even if the graphics weren't the best, if everything else about the game was fantastic, it wouldn't bother me in the slightest. Now, I actually do think things like the lock picking is actually really fun and very creative. I don't necessarily care for the IRL lockpicking, mostly due to the fact that if the way it's designed, I should say, um, it's not very. It's very difficult to hit something and then rotate it IRL when a guard walks by. Where a lot of the games, like I think Skyrim and amongst others, where because it's a single player game, it's not like you have any other clients or anything else actively going on, so it should be able to like pause it like a menu. But when you're trying to do it and you're like you have to find the spot on it, and then you have to like rotate with it to unlock everything. You're like, okay, that's a fun mechanic. It's doable. Do I have the skill to do it or not? That's the ultimate question. Because if I don't have the skill to do it, then in terms of like a D&D stat or something, like do you have good enough agility to make your fingers work the magic with the lock picks, and then pop up, you pop your chest open or you open your door, or whatever the case might be. In that situation, is it something in which it's really important for IRL stuff to happen? Like, are you trying, like, is the game actively trying to get someone caught? Because if you were in like a Dungeons and Dragons game or even a real life thief and you were lock picking somebody's door, but you knew your trade, you should be able to do it instantaneously, practically. Or, depending upon obviously the modern technology, the locks. But again, modern technology locks versus ancient locks, there's quite a difference. They're not exactly in the same scenario, let's say. So, if that's the case, well, it shouldn't be too bothersome to imply that, hey, somebody in that time and day and age with the talent should be able to do that. Now, you can say, well, you don't have the talent starting out and you got to work your way up. It's like, sure, sure, sure. But even if that was the case, you would probably get so many chances to screw up before like an alert or something, or you break your lock picks and you run out of lock picks like Skyrim did. Like, well, you could just store up on a whole bunch of lock picks. Like, you could, but you're wasting a lot of game time to gather all those lock picks, and there's other aspects of that. But all in all, the only thing I dislike about the lockpicking is the IRL. Like the actual time you have to spend with guards potentially patrolling or somebody checking on a sound or something. And yes, you have clothes you can wear that like cancel out noise or whatever. But that's really it. Aside from that, lockpicking is actually really fun. Now, the other aspect that's similar but not the same is pickpocketing. I don't particularly enjoy the pickpocketing because it's a very strange mechanic that they put into play. Now, the pickpocketing is basically you have this little circle and there's a little mark on it. And when you start pressing and holding the button, you have to get past that mark at least to be able to access whatever pocket you're going into. And with that little mark, you can keep holding it and the colors will change like color with like no, there'll be like a number there, like a digit, and it basically tells you this is how many seconds you have to do whatever the situation might be. But as soon as you activate it, which it doesn't do a very good job of explaining you how that works, then you go into the pocket and it's question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, a whole bunch of stuff with a bunch of things on the outside. And you basically have to rotate to go to whatever it is you're wanting to get. And I'm sitting here going like, that's a very weird way to do it. Because if I'm shoving my hand in someone's pocket while they're walking, I'm going to be popping my hand in and popping it out. I'm not going to be ha. That's not what I'm gonna be doing. So it's a little strange to be like, I'm going to grab something, but I'm going to jiggle it around. Now, if you're in public, you'd imagine you'd have to be walking with them. Now, if they want to go with that mechanic, they should have an auto walk that maintains pace with the person you're like in a throng with or something. And so while you're pickpocketing them, based upon your skill, you can pick what you need in the time frame that's reasonable. But you'd also do things like slide your other hand between their pouch and their body so it's not banging against their body and alerting them that you're in their pocket. But you don't want to make it too light or too heavy because they'll notice the pull or relax on their belt. So you'd have other mechanics you could do to basically prevent that as, like, I don't know, a skill in that area. That would make sense. Some of the skills are a bit questionable on what the purpose of them is in terms of the grand scheme of things, or who's crazy enough to use them to begin with. But I'm sure somebody out there's picked them. It is what it is. But that being said, the pickpocketing is pretty atrocious. I'm not gonna lie. It's much easier to just knock somebody out and then take it off. It's just, I don't make the rules. It's just a ridiculous. It's not a fun process. No one's like, man, I can't wait to go pickpocket people with a terrible, terrible game mechanic. Nobody wants to do that. So why are we assuming and lying to ourselves that, that's exactly what I want? So there's something wrong with the lock picking. It could be improved. I think lock picking as a possibility is an idea that I like. I just think there are other games that have done it better. Like, for example, in Skyrim, if you pickpocket from somebody, it pauses everything. A menu pops up. You pick things up, and you have like a weight bar. Like, you can carry so much because of your skill, and you can do so much of this and the values of things and stuff. And like even in RPGs like Divinity Original Sin 2 or Baldur's Gate 3 and stuff, what you're pickpocketing will depend upon your skill at the time and how much you can take of value. So if that's the case, then those are mechanics you could potentially put in. But pausing, as opposed to have them real life moving, because the real life moving, while it's interesting, will be much more difficult to put into play. And since pickpocketing isn't going to win you the game, it's going to be like something that can help you get some stuff. But if you get pickpocketing, and even if you do manage to get a mechanic and it works, if you get pickpocketing, then you run into another problem, another game mechanic. Selling stolen loot, because somehow, if you steal something from somebody, it's marked stolen in your inventory. You're walking around in a big, huge town. Nobody's caught you steal anything. And a guard walks up to you. And they're like, you've stolen something. Excuse me? What do you mean I've stolen something? You've never seen me steal a thing. And even if they have seen you steal a thing, they've forgotten about it because you left town, went to a different town, came back after like 6 months, and they don't remember nothing because, oh, that kid stole an apple once. Oh, so see this stolen crossbow in his thing? That's definitely stolen. What are you talking about? You wouldn't know this. You have no knowledge of this. So the stolen aspect is you go to get things clean. So you take it to, in this case, the millers, and the millers have basically the entire thieving industry locked down for some reason. But okay. So you take it to the miller, you sell them your hot items. But when you turn around to buy it from them, instead of them selling them to you at a cheaper cost so they can get them off of their hands, they increase the price exponentially, even though you're selling it to them for a much smaller amount. And I get it. It's a merchant thing to do. It's you sell them something for an amount, they turn around and sell it for more. But sometimes they sell it for almost the exact same amount as you go buy it brand new. Well, then who am I selling to the miller for? Like, they don't have anybody in the game buying from them because their inventory never changes. So what's the point of them having a market to purchase from if it's not me purchasing it from them? There's no logical reason for this. So keep that in mind. Now, this leans into other things because there are some games, I think it was, again, Skyrim did it better, where you could turn around with hot things hot items and be like, I'm gonna get that back and whatever. And like if you steal in this game, I think it's called aggression. It's like the coin system. You steal aggression, it doesn't have a marker next to it that's sold. If you steal an item that you already have a plethora of, like the schnapps, which are there's I think they're called schnapps, whatever they're called. That's like the little potion you drink to save, which is a whole other thing. Like, why is saving a problem in this game? I don't understand, because you have to make a potion just to save the game. But you have so little of them, you don't know when you're going to use them, so you never actually use them. But that's a whole different tangent. I'm not going to go off, but you can already tell the problems with that. But it's a single player game. There's no reason not to have just access to saves whenever, because if you're about to do something really tough, you want to pop the potion, so to speak, and save the game. That way, when things go wrong, you can reload without having to go back and do a whole other thing. I did this several times in a town where I had to go in, find the place from an autosave, which I don't know why it even auto-saved. Nothing triggered specifically that made an autosave. But I had to run through the town like 8 times because I had to keep reloading to get to the same place. And then keep waiting for somebody to go to sleep. And then pickpocket them. It was really annoying. Like hyper annoying. Like super hyper annoying. And I could have just solved that problem by start button. Save game. Save. Done. And this almost seems like we created a problem and sold you the solution. Now, they didn't sell it to us monetarily, but they sold us in the game. We're going to create a grind system for you to create a market in the game for this thing that you are the sole purveyor of. You're the only person who's going to benefit from this particular item. That doesn't need to be an item at all. In fact, it's kind of pointless as an item because it has one job, and the one job it has is breaking the fourth wall. So I don't understand why this is a thing. So Warhost, everybody's been telling you this, so please, for the love of all that's pure and holy, do not put this in number 2. Now, I get that the game's pretty much done already. It probably is already done. You're doing some minor polishing, maybe some minor bug fixes, whatever the case might be, because it releases in a month. I get it, right? But please don't have this in that. That would be horrible of an experience for us to come back and be like, oh man, seriously? My kid likes to say that. Seriously? 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 But here's the thing. Little things like these build up to be the player's experience. So, if you're lockpicking and you're having fun, you'll do a lot of lockpicking. If you're pickpocketing and you're enjoying the pickpocketing, you'll have a lot of fun and you'll do more of it. That you can make the challenges greater without making the enjoyment lesser by having a good game mechanic. When you steal something or take something that's not yours, stealing something, and selling it to the miller, getting it back for a lowered price, like more than what you paid for, sure, I get that. But if I steal something and sell it to somebody for 50 Gresham, I want to pay 150 Gresham for it. I don't want to pay 400 Gresham for it. Like, there's an infinite market and a ridiculousness because there is no other market. You are the single sole market for anything in this game. No markets rotate that I'm aware of. And even if they did rotate, why are they rotating? No one else is buying from them. It's a game. If you had other players, I'd understand. That would make more sense. But even then, nobody wants to pay 400 Gresham for something that they can get for 150 when you got paid 50 for it. Because that means I can go sell a ton of stuff to the miller and buy this one specific item that I got from him. And it's a pretty nice one. The repair system is a bit wonky, I think, from what I recall, because I don't almost ever do it. I always usually upgrade my stuff. But from what I recall, it's not too bad. But I'd have to recover that ground again because I honestly just don't recall. But then you have things like the selling of hot items, the experience that just drives you nuts, herbalism, whatever the case might be. Like, if I'm going to spend 70 hours of a game picking herbs in it, I want it to at least be enjoyable or at least benefit me in some shape or form. Whether it be recipes are easier to access when you go to maybe an alchemy table or whatever the case might be to your workbench or something, that would make sense. But being like, yeah, you picked a whole bunch of stuff and we're just not going to help you understand any of the situation, which to some extent maybe they do, to some extent maybe they don't. That's a little bit different. But when it comes to AI, I don't like this in Skyrim. I don't like this in Red Dead Redemption 2, in 1, and any of them really. Basically, the entire game industry is terrible when it comes to game AI in an open world environment. For example, and they have actual evidence of this, they've even made parody videos of this by like Viva La Dirt League and whatnot, where, and I'll lay this scene out for you, where basically this guy's walking by and the guy's like, hey, don't come by. And it's just like, I'm just walking on the path. I'm just walking the path. I'll be right by you and I'll be gone. Oh, don't get closer here. I'll shoot you. And it's like, listen, I'm just going to walk this way past you and nothing's going to come of it. It's like, oh, but if you come closer, I'm going to shoot you. It's like, okay, listen, I'm walking. Leave me be. He starts walking. The guy tries to shoot him and then he has to shoot and kill the guy, right? It's technically self-defense. Step 1, self-defense. Step 2, the game literally spawns in an NPC. It's not that they were there. It's not that they were looking your direction or just happened to be in the vicinity. No. They specifically put that person there. And you could be like, well, that's because otherwise you just go around murdering everybody. It's your own game. You should be able to do whatever you want. If you want to go murder hobo on everybody, go murder hobo on everybody. That's completely fine. Because nobody's going to be disappointed in the game except the player. No one cares. Literally no one. It's the same thing with like putting an anti-cheat system in a single player game. Nobody cares. It's understandable to some extent, within reason, to put an anti-cheat system, and half the time they don't even work, they just cause problems. More than half the time, probably 3/4 of the time to not 90% of the time. If it's a multiplayer game, it makes sense to have one because you don't want someone else ruining everybody else's fun. That'll kill your game. I get that. Totally understand. In a single player game, that does not exist. That's like saying we're having a mod ban on our game. Why? Because we don't want you to mod our game. Well, why don't you want me to mod our game? Because we don't like that. I'm sorry, did you buy the game from me? Did you pay me money to take the game from me? Because if someone marking that sucker up so I can buy another cheap copy from you and keep selling you the bigger one, I'm going to have an income just from this. But if it's a single player game, no mod blocking, which most games don't really have any choice in say in that matter, but if you have any of the other systems that try to block anything, don't worry, modders will mod it out for you. No cheat blocks, no nothing. If I want to cheat, I get a cheat, because if that's the experience I want in my game, then that's the experience I should get, because guess what? I'm the sole audience of this game. It doesn't matter what anybody else does in their games. They could do horrendous things. They could do perfectly pure and amazing things. It doesn't really matter. Point is, I want to play the game the way I want to play it, and you want to play the game you want to play the way you want to play it. As long as it's single player, there should be no limitations. So if I'm sitting here like I want a real experience of going into the boonies, shooting a dude, taking all of his stuff, and then dipping, and then the next traveler that comes along is like, oh no, someone's been murdered, and wants to report it, sure. They're looking for a murderer. They have no idea how to find said murderer because they don't know who did it. They just say, guess it was bandits, and then move on with their lives. That's an actual AI experience that anyone can get behind because it makes sense. But if you're literally going to drop somebody, so you walk past the guy, he shoots at you, you shoot him, he dies. Oh, I saw that. I'm going to go tell the sheriff. That's not what anyone does in real life. That doesn't happen. Hey, murderer, I saw what you did. I'm going to go tell the authorities. Well, guess I got to go kill him too. And you kill him. Boop, down the road. Hey, murderer, I saw what you did. I'm going to go tell the authorities. Guess I got to kill him too. And before you know it, you have a trail of bodies. Literally a trail of bodies and tears. All the way to a major city. And then you have to kill half the town to prevent from becoming a criminal. And then anybody else who thinks that you might become a criminal, you got to kill them, and then it causes a whole bunch of problems because you just don't want to become a wanted individual in an area. And the wanted system is also a problem in a lot of games too. I haven't really noticed it in Kingdom Come, so thank God for that. But AI has a problem. Those who don't see you do things and don't have time to tell anybody else about anything, or don't know that you actually did anything, are running around catching you doing things you didn't do. Like, for example, I was walking down a street in a town in Kingdom Come, Deliverance. And at night, you have to carry a lamp or a torch or something. It's illegal to not have a light. And you're thinking, that seems like an odd rule, but okay. So somebody said, hey, it's illegal. And I was like, oh, okay. So I pull out my torch. Went about my business. Just, I have a torch. I can go down alleyways. I can go I can be as shifty as I want. As long as I have that torch, it's all good. So I have the torch. I'm walking with the torch down. Woman walks by without a torch. I'm like, excuse me, lady. Don't you know it's illegal to walk out at night without having a light? She doesn't care. Because it's a game. They designed her not to care because it's their rules. I kid you not. 15 minutes later, not even joking, 15 minutes later, I'm walking in the same town because I'm checking things out. I'm scouting the area for a mission and a quest, I should say. And I'm still carrying my torch. A guard says, "You stop." And I'm like, "Me? Why would I stop?" Comes up and tells me that I've been walking around without a torch. I kid you not. I, who have for the past 15 minutes have been walking around with the torch, have now been told 15 minutes later that I've been walking around without one as he's looking at me with the torch in my hand. The area around me is lit up. You can't make this up. It's that stupid AI. Now, with modern technologies, and this is back from like what, 2014 or something like that. Like it's been a few years. It's been a few years. AI's gotten better, right? Well, only if the company actually implements it correctly. So, Warhorse, please tell me you have good AI in this game, because I really, really want to like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I really want to. It looks fantastic. I want to play the snot out of it. I want it to replace Skyrim. I want it to be amazing. I'm a little worried that won't be, though. It looks great. It sounds great. The story seems intriguing. I'm here for it. But I have this itchy feeling it's always kept me from buying the collector's edition. You know, the $200 big collection. The reason I've been willing is like, what if it sucks? Because they didn't learn from the prior 10 years or whatever. That would really suck, wouldn't it? I might have to wait. Now, for games that have won my trust and my loyalty, never had this problem before. I just instantaneously buy it because they have a brand recognition, they have some guidance. Nowadays, I'm a bit more cautious because you can't just say, well, this company made this game and they've done these legendary games. No, 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 no. People who in the past worked in those companies, worked on those games. Those people are probably gone with a whole new batch of other people in there now who are not the same people. It might be the same brand, but that's because you don't change brands just because your employees leave. It's not like, well, Phil, Jeb, and Sue all left the company. Guess we got to change the name. It's not how that works. It's not how that works. So, we get around this. We get around it by treating every company individually per game. Gone are the days where we can just express, I love this company, they've done amazing things, they've never let me down, blah, 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 when the teams are different. And if you have one guy from 30 years ago that's on the team, that's not enough to fix the whole game, in my eyes. And you could say I'm being cynical, you could say I'm being unrealistic. No, I've seen what's come out of some of these companies that made legendary games, and they're making terrible games that don't become successful. And lots of studios are becoming basically shut down in general, not just legendary studios, but like studios are collapsing because of poor production creation, etc. So I am not going to just give Warhorse anything because they don't deserve it. No company deserves anything of mine or of yours. What a game company is supposed to do is to earn your money, earn your trust, earn your respect, earn their keep. And they do that by appealing to the gaming audience that is their target demographic. Now, in most games, and this applies to everyone who does the AI stuff, ridiculous AI stuff needs to stop. And sometimes modders can mod it out. But it's ridiculous because if I steal an apple in one town and I go 3 countries away and I'm walking around and all of a sudden the guardian comes up, "Halt, citizen! You've committed a crime." And you're like, "What crime did I commit, sir?" And they're like, "You stole an apple 3 countries over." I'm like, "What? How could you possibly know I did if I did?" And I'm not saying I did, but if I did, how would you know? Well, the entire development team told me so because of coding and stuff. It's like, what are you talking about? This is a medieval game, sir, or a fantasy game or whatever. Like, okay, fine. Magical encrypted mail system? All right, you got me there. Take me to prison, good sir. Like, no, like that, it doesn't make sense. It needs to stop. If someone doesn't see you do something, you didn't do it. Innocent until proven guilty, good sirs. That's how that works. The same thing goes, for example, let's say you're like, oh, there's a camp of enemy guys. I'm going to sneak in there. I'm going to kill them all. So you go in, kill. And there's like 50 dead bodies, corpses everywhere, blood splattered all over you. And one of their guys walks in. He should be like, what happened? And you're sitting in the middle of them. You just put the knife behind your back. In that situation, he should probably go, "Oh, I think it was you, wasn't it? You're covered in blood and everything." And if he goes, "It probably wasn't you," and then leaves, that's bad AI. But if you go into an area, kill a bunch of innocent people, and guards roll in, and you kind of like are in the vicinity, they can't pin it on you just because you're in the vicinity. That's not good AI. That's just grabbing whoever is nearby and saying you're the problem and either arresting them or executing them on the spot. That doesn't make sense. That breaks the immersion of the game. We want immersion because the immersion lets us experience it. And if you don't like immersion, don't play immersive games. But if I want immersion, I usually go for the immersive games and I want to not experience lack of immersion because of game breaking AI. And this should be something that makes sense to anybody who's dealt with some sort of artificial intelligence for NPCs and whatnot, because they're coded individually to do whatever it is they're supposed to do. So all you have to do, any studios listening, all you have to do is code it so people aren't getting arrested wrongfully, or everything in their bag that's marked hot, aka stolen, just gets pulled every single time. No other guard should know what you stole is stolen other than very unique items like a specific ring of, say, the Lord of the Castle kind of a thing. Yeah, you could say that's stolen. Unless the king or the lord gave you the ring to hold. how are you as a guard going to know? Well, you'd probably say, oh, I think you stole this. Send a message to the king or the lord, and the lord says, no, I gave that to him, and then you're released. That's a reasonable experience. But if it's every single guard in every single town by every single person in that group, that gets a little old really quick. So then they spread out and send messages and say, hey, if anybody happens to have this ring, it's one of ours. And this is the basic repetitive over and over and over kind of a thing. It's not difficult to create an idea that you can code around. It might be difficult to code, but it's worth it, depending upon how good you are at your job. Now, I'd like to think that Warhorse Studios is a fantastic development team, and I would like to think that they have our best interest at heart, and I would like to give them the benefit out on everything. And on most things, I'm willing to give it to them because of things they've said, the positivity they've created around the gamers and the culture that they're trying to put themselves into. And I'd say the same thing about the Larian Studios who did Baldur's Gate 3 and the Divinity sagas and stuff. I'm willing to give them a benefit where I'm not willing to give the benefit to Cyberpunk, or not Cyberpunk, CD Projekt Red. My apologies. I'm not willing to give the benefit to EA. I'm not willing to give the benefit to Bethesda. I'm not willing to give it to, was it Blizzard or any of the other types of like. I'm not interested in helping those people because they're not interested in helping me. But Warhorse, Larian, they're actually trying. They're saying the right things, which leads me to believe they're actually trying. So I'm going to hold off or withhold judgment completely, but I'm just as more of a plea. Please fix these things. Please. I know the game's pretty much done. I know. But this is stuff that should have been looked at as soon as the game came out. They got the feedback, said, you know what? We need to fix that. Now, this is where it's going to get a little bit crazy. Because what I'm about to say is going to blow your mind. It's the reason I have not finished the game. The combat is terrible. It's atrocious. It is garbage. And I'm not being facetious. It belongs in a landfill. It's horrible. Now, there are reasons for this. But before I go into those reasons, I want to show you a video. But before we go into the video, I want to show you what's in my mind, aka verbally. So, if any of you have played The Witcher 1 or The Witcher 2 or The Witcher 3 or all the trilogy, trio, whatever you're going to call it, you know what I'm talking about. So, games such as the European games typically have a very, very strange game mechanic concept of how combat works. They don't get on the bandwagon of press this for light attack, press this for heavy attack, do this for whirlwind attack, do this for another. There's no combination for buttons or whatever. It's just moving your mouse at an angle while clicking your button to attack, and it's a very strange way to do it. And some people can learn it, some people can't. Some people learn it quickly, some people can't or don't. So, in The Witcher 1, the combat was friggin' weird. Not gonna lie, I didn't grow up on it like early in my younger years when it first came out, and then I grew into it and was like, oh, this isn't so bad. I came in back to that late in the game. But then Witcher 1 combat was different than Witcher 2 combat, which was different than Witcher 3 combat. Out of the three, Witcher 3 is hands down the best. And they were all three different. They weren't the same. They were very different. Like they were trying out new combat systems between each of the games, which I applauded them when they did that because CD Projekt Red was trying out something new, trying to find their shtick. They could have done a little bit more basic research and said, there's a standard idea of how swordplay works or combat in general works. Maybe we should take that as our base template and then expand off of that rather than just making a whole new individual system that everyone's going to have to learn from the ground up and basically we're asking them to build a skyscraper out of mud and sticks because it was pretty bad for the first two games. Not gonna lie. Second one was better than the first one. Third one's better than the second one and the first one. Yada yada yada. If they remade those or had a mod put in for that, at least give me the option to play a different way because it ruins the game. Because it's hard to want to finish something that's atrocious. I'm not gonna lie. It makes it difficult. And I love The Witcher 1. I like The Witcher 2. I like Witcher 3 a lot more though. Because it's fun. I know I can go in, I can do stuff. There Witcher 3 has its problems. Don't get me wrong. Just because I like something doesn't mean it doesn't have problems. But it's better. It's much better. It's more usable. Now, in this situation, if Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 comes out and the combat's phenomenal, I'm gonna be so tickled pink, dude. I'm just gonna hope they make pickpocketing phenomenal. Otherwise, we just keep stabbing people and taking it through their corpses because there's no point in pickpocketing somebody if the pickpocketing system doesn't work. It's a simple aspect of it. So, other games, like maybe you've heard of the like Mountain Blade games. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. If you're a PC player, you probably have heard of them. You may not have played them, but you may have heard them. If you're not a PC player, it's a bit more iffy. But Mountain Blade 2, so I should say, Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord, referred to as Bannerlord, came out. And this is where people get a lot of their experiences. But this happened in the earlier Bannerlords. So anybody who plays Bannerlords, don't wig out on me. I am aware. There's this thing where you're a single person and a group of people charge at you and they basically run at you to the point where they're basically tackling you to the ground. They're tackling you by crushing against you, but they can somehow hit you and do damage, and you can't hit them and do damage because it just ricochets off their shields over and over again. But then a shield will break down over time. It takes damage and it is destroyed, and then you don't have that shield. But there's 6+ of them hitting your shield, which devolves it really fast and turns it to putty. And then there's everyone hitting like you and you hitting one of them at a time, and it's spread out amongst whoever's in front of you at the time. And yes, you can kick them backwards. The one person you kick. It doesn't make everybody else go away. Also, stamina. You have limited stamina, they have unlimited stamina. Don't know why. You have weight restrictions, they don't have weight restrictions. You basically run unconscious in Kingdom Come Deliverance when you sprint beyond your stamina. You're like, oh, everything's pulsing, fading because you went 20 feet at a full sprint. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm sorry. Henry is a big boy. He's been a worker his whole life. A slacker, but he's still a worker. He knows how to run 20 feet without passing out. That's not a realistic expectation in a stamina system. That's just not realistic. I mean, he should be able to run at least 100 yards before he's like getting close to winded because he's in good shape. I can do that, and I'm not in good shape. Now, if you add in extra things like he's wearing armor, he's got a heavy shield, or he's got this, sure, you're gonna reduce that slowly over time, but not 20 feet. In no situation is 20 feet. And just walking backwards or forwards for a couple meters or whatever as your stamina bar goes back up isn't going to make you all of a sudden be able to do it again. That's not how stamina works. It either needs to work consistently or not at all. You shouldn't need one if it's going to play like that. That's immersion breaking. Now, if you're running for 300 miles straight at full sprint, yeah, that's immersion breaking as well. There needs to be reasonable limits about your muscles can only handle so much of being battered from every angle. That makes sense because that's pretty typical. Even a veteran professional military guys, whether it be armsmen, mercenaries, whatever the case might be. But if you're just like, here, I'm going to add 20, 30, 40 pounds to your weight. Okay, but if I'm fighting somebody with the same, if not more, like if I'm fighting somebody who has 80 pounds of weight on them or something, Why are they able to outrun me and run me down and still swing at me with stamina they should not have? This is not immersive. They should be getting winded. Now, if they're not getting winded, I shouldn't be getting winded. Now, if you're going to add something of a statistic or something to where they're like you're running up and you attack or something, you can do so many attacks before you get tired. Sure, you can have that. But you need to have a way for me to train it so it's not a thing. It's not an issue for me. And typically you do that just by doing it every day. Like as you run, your running gets better because you've been running and you get used to it. And you're like, wow, I can run a little bit further than this time. Oh, wow, I can run really far this time. Oh, wow, I can run really far because you run all the time. Makes sense. Now, if you're carrying a lot of things, you start out with a little bit of weight, then a little bit bigger weight, then a little bit bigger weight, and as long as you're within your encumberment limit and you keep on walking around with a bunch of weight, if you have like a limit that you have to carry at least the amount of up to your encumbrance, if you're in that little sweet spot, you can gain strength points because you're carrying weight. Your body is becoming stronger by doing it. It's the same concept with the guy who carries the little calf when he's a kid. And as he gets older, the calf gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the time he's walking up and down this mountain with a full-on ox on his back, not like hyper realistic, but the idea is there, is where the more you do something, the better you are at it. Same thing in D&D. When you roll your dice and you're like, I got a 2, it's a paper mache door with a lock that's practically not a lock. You're a level 7 million legendary rogue. You can open the door. You don't need a roll for that. There's just limitations. They're silly. They're pointless. And I could get into the RPG system, but we're not gonna do that because that's a different video if I want to do that. But I have my own problems there too. Homebrewing is about a better way to deal with a lot of these problems that the companies, corporate companies, do not put in any consideration or point of contention. So we're not going to even touch upon that. Now, aside from this, you've got the AI who clutters about you, can do everything better than you. Like they're like Superman to your I'm dead. They can do everything better. They will do everything better. There's no way to fight little groups. I can't hire a posse of mercenaries to run around with me when I do things. I can't create a band of merry men, apparently, because every time I try to, I'm hunting down people who are getting hanged or this, that, or the other, but they're only for main quest. Where's my band of merry men to wander around with me when I want them to? Can I post them like a Rainbow Six game all over the place and be like, all right, Alpha Charlie Bravo, Delta, go. And everybody just rushes in and we kill a whole bunch of people. I don't know. What does it take to have a game that'll let me do what I want to do? Can I have a survival game where a nearby wanderer comes by and I hire him to be a guard for my base? And he's a guard, shoots, hunts, all this stuff, keeps my territory safe from bad guys that is constantly being flung at me. That's fun because it becomes like a based tower defense game. Built in with a survival aspect, built in with the mindless hours of grinding. Give me something I want, game industry, because you're killing me here. There's so many cool ideas out there that haven't been touched because people won't touch them for some reason. And those who do try to touch them don't do them properly, or they'll pick a couple things but leave the majority of it out, and then it goes in half done and half baked, and then it doesn't come out of the oven cooked fully, and puts a bad taste in everyone's mouth, everyone's stomachs get sick, and then they all spend 3 years on the freaking toilet because you just gave them a big crap. What can I say? I'm elegant with words. But so we got all this down. If you've been following, combat problems, starting with, you know, stamina, your basic understanding of how to wield weapon. I'm not joking when I say this, but Henry at level 1 of anything combat, in his peak physique, like he's a blacksmith kid, he's a big boy. He should be able to swing something, a mace, an axe, a sword, a spear, anything, way more deadly than I should be able to. Guarantee you, he does not have that capacity. He swings a sword like 2 times, he's like, whoo, boy, just give me 5 seconds, guys. Okay, I'm ready to go. I know my life's on the line, but hold up, guys. I gotta catch my breath. Woo! This dude has problems. He's got asthma. He's obese. He's practically in the grave. He's got 1 foot, half of its toes stuck in it already. Like, I'm not joking when I say immersion in these games is dying a horrible, horrendous death that nobody deserves. And nobody deserves to play those games either. But when somebody like that happens, I'm seeing this big like physique, and he might not be like shredded underneath his clothes, but he's a big boy. He carries and works with metals in a hot place that's going to burn a lot of calories. He's going to sweat a ton. He's going to run around, do things. Yeah, he goes, drinks ale or beer at the tavern. You're going to get your beer belly that way. He doesn't have one from what I can tell in the game. He should not be having problems that someone like myself, who's not in the greatest shape. Like, I mean, I'm not in horrible shape, but I'm not in the greatest shape either. But I should not be able to out stamina this guy in any shape or form. And I've got like a history of medical problems and stuff that prevent me from doing things at peak performance, even if I wanted to. But I can swing a sword a whole lot more. And they're designed to be of a specific weight. Guarantee you his grip is stronger than mine. His balance and just arm strength, lifting weight, and everything is much greater than mine in capacity. And he can't swing. Now, it's one thing if he can't swing it eloquently, if he can't do like a riposte or something, then sure, I get that. But he should be able to wild man axe somebody into the ground until they're like, no, stop. Like, he can't even do that. He can't just use pure brute strength to get through it. And if you put stuff into strength, you should be doing more damage to them. Because if you give somebody a sharp axe and somebody a wooden shield, and you say, go, I should be through that shield before the guy ever has even hope of a prayer of picking up his weapon to respond with it while he's holding the shield. He's using that shield in pure defensive mode. I'm going to go berserker on him and chop suey that thing into oblivion because I'm going to hit my target. Because brute strength, there's no finesse, there's no eloquency to it, nothing. It's brute raw force. He should be able to do that. Now, let's say he can't run for a long distance because he's not a trained runner. Sure. Most armsmen aren't, if that was the case. And if most armsmen are not, well, what do you think's going to happen? You're going to die. Like, and there's adrenaline factor. And I know there's a lot of things in real life it's really difficult to code into a game. I get that. But there's easier ways to deal with this. Give them basic combat just stuff, and then use perks or skills as they use them in the game, and upgrade them over time to add more to your base. Turn your wild swings into more specific targeted actual attacks. That's how you make the game more immersive, but not treat your level 1 player like he has the body of the Hulk, but can't swing a paper mache or rabbits longer than 20 seconds without falling over dead. That's bare minimum, guys. That is bare minimum. So, amongst a whole bunch of things, getting swarmed, we've covered all this. So now we're going to jump over to a video I'd like you to watch. Take a gander. what you think, because that's how I feel. And thank you to Jimmy is Rustled. Check out his channel if you like that video, because he was gracious enough to put that in his video, and I'm pretty sure he made it, which is much, much better than I am at, well, editing, presentation, basically everything. And he's not much bigger than I am, but the guy deserves a lot more in that regard. I don't know exactly what he focuses on, because I don't watch his other videos. I just happened to find this one and thought it was really interesting. That one video that he put this on, I'll try to put it in this description. I may or may not forget. I apologize to everyone, including Jimmy. So if I do, leave it in the comments and I'll post it, because I'll get that. But I think he has 51,000 views and he's got 337 subscribers. That's not cool. He should be much bigger than that. So check out Jimmy is Rustled, one word. But yeah, he made an excellent little montage there, and it accurately represents what we think that the developers were going to go with. They had this idea that the combat would be so fantastic, nothing could possibly go wrong. And then what reality is, you're just getting battered to pieces, because there's no, like, your shield against their weapon, you'd think it would just thud, maybe push you back a little bit, and then you could push back at them because it should bounce, it should ricochet off of it, right? You'd think that. No, you would be wrong, good sir and ma'ams out there, all you sirs and ma'ams. You'd be wrong. You know why? Because shields only go down and they can't come back up. And once the shield's down, you can't block anything with it anymore. It's gone forever. That's the whole problem. That's the problem. You're just gonna get overwhelmed. You're just gonna get obliterated. It's all your fault because game mechanics. I mean the devs. Statistically, you're doing it wrong. Am I doing this right? I'm doing it wrong, apparently. What? I can't just get good at something by doing it a million times over and over and over again. I don't. What's the word they call it, used for this? Practice. Like, games like Valheim are legendary for doing these kind of things. Now, you don't see as much of you don't see as much of a difference in Valheim, because when you chop down trees, you get higher points. I think they cap out 100 experience that level up your chopping with axe or something for cutting trees, which means that when you're chopping trees, it reduces how much stamina you use for those actions, because you're doing it a lot. You're like, I'm chopping a tree. Whoo, I've done this 1,000 times. Man, I could chop trees better now because I have more practical real life experience, which is, wait a minute, isn't this how this works? You do something so many times and you just get better at it slowly, which is like my videos where they were really, really bad when I started and they're still really bad, but better. I need an editor. But yes, so we have the reality and the expectation. We all want to be we want the combat to be in the expectation, but we all know what the reality is. Game over, you are dead. And this is my problem. In a combat-based game, the combat must be good, because it's essential. I can't assassinate every single person in the game, as much as I would love to play a game like that. You're on horses, you're wearing full suits of armor, you're a knight, or whatever it is you want to be. This is the time to have fun when you like this experience. It's fantastic. Please, for the love that's all that's pure and holy, give us a game that properly implements a good mechanic. Because if all else fails, if you're playing a game like The Witcher or Kingdom Come Deliverance, Mountain Blade, any game that has combat as its main focus point, you gotta get the combat right. Hire some gameplay testers, have them come in, see what they want out of the game, what they like out of the game. Take their honest opinion. Don't pick and choose and say, oh, well, I like what you say. The rest of y'all get out of here. No. Take every single one of them and be like, wow, 85% of the hundreds of people did not like my combat. Is it the children that is wrong? Or am I the one who's wrong? No, it's the children who are wrong. No. You look at it, you say, hey, you, this is the one thing it has to be right above all else. And we're not doing it right because it's the same thing when like you go to the teacher's like, oh man, the whole class failed. What a bunch of losers. And it's like, actually, doesn't that make you the loser? Because you were supposed to teach us, and that means you just failed at teaching us what you're supposed to. And they're like, oh my gosh. Because it is ultimately the problem. If everybody hates your game because of a mechanic, it's probably you, not them. Now, I know there are people who have managed to beat the system and this whole thing isn't a problem, right? It's all good. But that's a very small percentage of audience. And if you have to sell a lot of games, and this game's been in development for a long time, a very long time. So if this doesn't work, this could break the studio, possibly close it completely. I don't want that. And again, this is more of a constructive criticism because there are ways to get around this. If there's a game with swarming going on, then you create a game where you can create the anti-swarming, aka your own posse. It doesn't have to be 100 guys. It doesn't have to have a limit either. But it doesn't, you could just, whoever you can hire, whoever you win their trust by saving them from a bunch of ragamuffins, maybe they're the ones getting smushed in by a whole swarm of guys, and you go in the back and start killing all the guys in the back, and then you save them, and they're like, I'll follow you, I have a life debt to you. And then you build your own little mercenary group, or you build your own army personally from the ground up. Maybe you can go out there and find the one guy who's been captured prisoner by the enemy, and you go in there and you silently assassinate everybody in that camp. All 300 soldiers just dead in the middle of the night because you were really good at sneaking around and killing people. And you get him out of there, and all the corpses are left there for whoever comes to find them. And the enemy comes in, what happened here? We lost 300 dudes. That's a huge loss to us. Yeah. I'm kind of projecting what I want to do in a game. Sorry. Because that'd be fun if you do it right. I'm not saying just like let me walk in and wow. No. I want to go in, and if I have the stealth and I can sneak them on and grab them, stab them in the neck, drag them in the shadows, and I can do this for 300 people. Let's go. People gonna be snoring, people gonna be sleeping, whatever the case might be. Go in there, close their mouth, stab them, they die. Move to the next tent, stab them, they die. Move to the next tent. Make it realistic to like what we know now about sneaking and stuff, and then put it in that time period. Ninjas is about to get real. And ninjas are pretty cool. So there's that. I mean, shinobi, if you're being the literal ones, because there are those of you who are literals. I just like saying ninjas because ninjas are cool. I mean, I grew up on ninjas, like the Lego ninjas and stuff. Fantastic. Point being, I like ninjas. And there are things you should be able to be allowed to do in a game, because anytime a game company says, no, you have to play the way we want you to play, in an open world, do whatever you want game, that's a bit ridiculous. So if I go into a thing, it's the Ghost of Tsushima more mentality, where I can go into a town filled with Mongols and I can kill everybody in the town full of Mongols. Shocking. Now, I'm a little bit more cautious in games like Kingdom Come Deliverance because I could just kill people. But at the same time, I don't want to kill a future quest giver. So I don't know who's going to be doing what. And I don't know. I think the game's going to just respawn a quest giver if they die. So I don't know how to like react to that situation. So I don't just go on a murder rampage because you can't finish the game if you do. You know what else you can't finish the game if you don't do? Have a good game mechanic for combat. Looking at you, Warhorse. I'm putting my bets down that you fixed this problem because so many people didn't like it and so many people complained about it. Please tell me it's been fixed. Because if it is fixed, I will kiss you right on the lips. Right on the lips. Because I am stoked for this game. I don't want to be let down. So many games have been letting me down lately that when I get one that is not letting me down, I'm I'm tickled pink. There's no other way to describe it. I am just in love with that game, and I'm just like, man, I'm having so much fun. And a lot of games are getting ridiculous because people are looking just to squeeze the life out of you monetarily by like, oh, microtransactions this, free to play this. I don't want free to play. I want to pay you money for something, and then you leave me alone. Now, if you want me to pay you and then you have microtransactions available as cosmetics, then sure, go for it. No pay to win, no pay to play beyond buying the game. You can make it work. I can make it work. But I need the game to work. I need it to be a game I can draw myself into and lose myself in it. I want to be like, man, I just played 30 hours in 5 minutes. It was great. I loved every moment of it. Not, man, I played 5 minutes of 30 hours and I hated every moment of it. So, War Studios, I'm not being a negative Nancy here. I'm just putting concerns on the table and hoping and praying, since I have no idea, you'll never see this probably, or whatever the case might be. I'm concerned that studios have not learned their lessons. And like, maybe because we're in Eastern Europe, we have a different idea of what combat is from the rest of the world. Maybe we should jump on the rest of the world's bandwagon and then adopt that and like adjust it and tweak it a little bit to somewhat fit into our frame of reference, to where the global audience can understand how to play it. Not everybody has to be good, not everybody has to like it, not everybody's trying to buy your game, but I don't know anybody who's like, man, I only buy games with terrible combat mechanics, because that's not what I see people doing. They ain't doing that. No one's like, man, this has terrible mechanics. I'll take 10. Like, so please do not take this as me just dumping on the game. There's a lot of beautiful things about this game. The world is great. Talking to people is great. Bunch of fun stuff. It has its problems. It has its twerks. Quirks. Not twerks. It has its quirks. You can tell I've been doing this for a little too long. Anyway, point being, I'm really hoping that when this game comes out, we get nothing but the best. So, Warhorse Studios, I'd raise a glass to, but I don't have anyone nearby. So, cheers, I guess, and please, please, please give me something that I can love for forever and not be just terrible at everything. So, thanks everybody for watching. If you like the video, please comment, like, subscribe, all that fun jazz. I'm just here putting my point of view out to everybody else, and then you guys tell me how stupid I am. And I mean, I can't really fault you in that department, but I'm always going to be honest with you guys on my takes on things. And if you disagree, that's fine. You're allowed to have your opinion. It doesn't make you right, doesn't make me right. Just means we have different opinions. I'd be more than happy to try to win you over in some shape or form, but ultimately that's on you to make your decisions. But if you do like this combat, if you could share it with somebody and help support the channel and grow a little bit bigger, that'd be appreciated. And check out Jimmy is Rustled and his YouTube channel, and give him a like if you like his content. I think it's, for the one video I watched, I was pretty happy. His is a lot shorter than mine though. But yes, we're here at the end. So thanks everybody for watching. And remember, my friends, walk in the light.